93.5, 1590 WAKR, and here we go. It's time to go to film school. We bring in film study professor Joe Fortunato each and every Friday at this time, and really looking forward to going to film school today with Joe as he's going back. Really one of my favorite flicks if you go back to the 80s. Love the story, the cast, everything about it. Can't wait to see what Joe has to say about it, and I'm going to let him take the movie from there. Good morning, Mr. Fortunato with Film School.
Good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. And today we're going to do one that I don't think it's talked about a lot these days. It was at the time. It was a big hit at the time. Released 40 years ago tomorrow, if you can believe that. Witness from 1985, released February 8th, 1985. Directed by Peter Weir and stars, of course, Harrison Ford, as well as Kelly McGillis, Lucas Haas, Danny Glover, and Viggo Mortensen from Lord of the Rings in his first role as kind of in the background, but still his first movie role. It had 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture and Best Actor. It won 2, one for original screenplay and editing. And it did a pretty well at the box office, had a very modest budget of $12 million and grossed nearly $70 million. And even though that doesn't sound a lot, again, by today's, this was one of the highest grossing films of the year that year. Now, the studios weren't real keen on this initially because they thought it was too rural. Even when Harrison Ford agreed to star in it, despite being a major name, they weren't really interested. And the script made rounds at all the major studios, and really they all turned it down except Paramount Pictures, and finally expressed some interest. And this is, even still today, one of the few films that focus on Amish culture. So that was unique at the time and still relatively rare. And also, Harrison Ford had been, commonly thought of. He was the heroic man with a gun, sci-fi fantasy films and stuff like that. But this was his first starring role that broke him away from those science fiction and fantasy genres, and it gave him his sort of first real meaty, serious role. I guess I shouldn't say serious. Blade Runner is serious, but I'm talking about a non-sci-fi kind of thing. And it was his first and only Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. Now, preparing for the role, Kelly McGillis actually lived with an Amish widow and her 7 children before filming. And not to be outdone, Harrison Ford joined the Philadelphia Police Department in preparation for this movie, and he joined them on numerous raids. So both stars were well prepared for their role. As realistic as the actors are playing the background roles as Amish people, no actual Amish people were in the film because they do not, as was pointed out in the movie, actually, they don't like to be photographed. So they were intensely interested in the filming, though, even though they weren't on camera. And many Amish people were kind of off camera, out of range, just sort of politely watching the production. And not to be outdone, even though they didn't want to act in the movie, they still wanted to be involved in Hollywood when they came to town, because some of the Amish residents of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, that's where this was shot, some of those Amish residents would come to director Peter Weir's house in secret and make secret deals to rent their buggies to use in the film. So they were very commercial, even though they weren't on camera.
Witness is the movie. One thing that I've always loved about this movie, Joe, is I've gone down to that county a number of times for biking. It is wonderfully rural. There's a peacefulness about that area. And when I saw this movie going way back, like you said, 40 years ago, it was alluring to me because I had biked those roads way back then. And it's a beautiful countryside. And I think that film does a really nice job of showing off that county and those countrysides and those rolling mountains.
Yeah, and it does do wonders for that portraying that community and stuff. But they still weren't really keen on it, because even afterwards, the residents of the county and stuff, they were worried that there'd be overcrowding and souvenir hunting and photography and just basically trespassing. And then the then governor of Pennsylvania promised not to promote the Amish film communities as future film sites. So kind of a one and done sort of thing. And maybe that's why we don't have a lot of Amish films made today. A couple of sort of fun things from behind the scenes. At one point in the film, Kelly McGillis's character Rachel asked Harrison Ford's John, "You know carpentry?" with a question mark, and he replies, "A bit." And that's kind of an inside joke because, as some people know, Harrison Ford was a carpenter before he became an actor. So kind of a fun inside joke there. Mm-hmm. Like I said, this film was released in 1985. It was the #2 box office film behind the enormous hit of Beverly Hills Cop. And even though this film made money, a Paramount executive said, hey, if they had known Cop was going to be such a big hit, they probably wouldn't have released them so soon after. In fact, even though, again, this did well at the box office, Witness didn't top the U.S. box office until the 5th week of its release. So it was kind of, running in second place behind Beverly Hills Cop for a long time. I already mentioned that this is Viggo Mortensen's feature film debut. Some interesting casting speculation. Isabella Rossellini, who of course is even up for an Oscar this year. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks, I suppose. She was offered the leading female role, but had to turn it down because of a scheduling conflict. And aside from Harrison Ford, the big names of the time were all either offered or considered for the role. Jack Nicholson, Sylvester Stallone, Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson, Clint Eastwood, even Richard Gere were all considered. And, as we always say, I think they made the right choice. Although I could kind of see Kevin Costner in this role. I think he might have done well. The screenplay itself is kind of used frequently as a model for, young screenwriters and screenwriting class because of its clear structure and a screenplay. And I can verify that's true because I actually, when I used to teach screenwriting, I used Witness as one of the examples of talking story structure. And kind of one final circular sort of thing. Harrison Ford and Gene Wilder starred together in a film called The Frisco Kid from 1979. So, about 6 years earlier than this. Kind of a forgotten film. I don't think a lot of people know about it. But in that film, Gene Wilder's character falls ill and is nursed back to health by a community of Amish folks. And Harrison Ford's character is shot and he's nursed back to health by a community of Amish folks. So I said there's not a lot of Amish films out there, but it's sort of ironic that Harrison Ford is connected to maybe the only 2 of them.
Yeah, I really love the film. I love the twist with Harrison Ford getting the young boy out of town when he realizes the young boy has seen the crime, and then the whole play up for them tracking him down. I really think it's a wonderful flick. And what'd you say, Joe, 40 years ago this weekend it was released?
Yep, exactly, tomorrow.
All right. Witness, our film school for today. Joe, you got a couple of things coming up next week. Why don't you enlighten us?
Yeah, I'm kind of teasing right now. I don't want to give a whole lot of details because some of them are sort of in the works and a few of them are weeks away. But March is going to be a very busy week or month for me, I should say. And I hope you'll come along for the ride on some of these things. The first one that I want to talk about, and I'll talk about it in more detail in weeks to come, but March 1st, that's a Saturday, the day before the Oscars, which is on Sunday, I will be giving a lecture, talk, discussion, whatever you want to call it, on the history of the Oscars at the Green Branch Library at 11 a.m. on Saturday, March 1st at the Green Branch Library. And it'll probably be about an hour. And we'll talk about the history of the Oscars and this year's ceremony, of course, and have a discussion and Q&A and kind of the things that we do. So I'd love to see as many people out there that are interested and want to come join us. That is a free event. So that's March 1st. And then a couple other dates in March, which I won't give out yet because they're not locked down. I might be doing 1 or even 2 Fortunato Film Schools, both live and online. So I'm hoping to lock those things down this week. And if and when they do, I'll of course be letting you good folks know about that. And that's something that we'll want to have people partake of as well.
Well, one thing that folks, I think, have grown to know, Joe, the Oscars, I'm not going to say, because I know you're a diehard football fan as well, I'm not going to say the Oscars are your Super Bowl, but it's like Super Bowl II with you. Joe has big parties, and he gets ready for the Oscars because that is what Joe Fortunato does. He's a film study professor, so he loves the Oscars. So that delivery at the Green Library certainly will be special, and try to get that on your calendar. Joe, my friend, as always, thanks for making time with us on Friday mornings, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, everybody.